Good evening, viewers. I'm the host, Barrister Maruf Islam Chaudhry, and welcome to this online live session organized on behalf of the Legal Voice Foundation, which is a non-profit organization with the aim of professional development and raising public awareness about the legal rights of the citizens of Bangladesh, including the fundamental rights as protected under the Constitution of Bangladesh. Today's webinar would be on the current problems faced while attending virtual hearings in the midst of this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and with a discussion on how those problems can possibly be addressed, with some knowledge and possibly guidance on how such problems are dealt with overseas. Respected viewers having any questions are welcome to comment here, which will be addressed later. Let us welcome our respected guests who will be joining today. Barrister Mahbub Shafiq and Barrister Mohammed Mujibul Haq.
Assalamu alaikum.
Islam. Thank you for joining in today's program. Mr. Mahbub Shafiq is a barrister and advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh and a senior associate at Barrister Shafiq Ahmed and Associates. Mr. Mohammed Mujibul Haq is settled in the UK and is a legal practitioner in the UK. Now let us move on to the topic of this webinar, which is virtual courts and the current difficulties faced involving it in legal practice. One of the problems which has recently been faced by lawyers while attending virtual hearings has been the verification of documents virtually. Regarding an order of bail which was granted by the High Court Division of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh through a virtual hearing to 5 accused persons on the 18th of May this year. Subsequently, on the 11th of June, the High Court issued a show cause notice to the lawyer representing the accused for allegedly helping the 5 accused persons to obtain bail on the basis of forged documents, that is, a forged FIR copy. Now, it is apparent that since the lawyer is representing the client, he or she must take all responsibility as to the documents which are to be submitted and relied on before the court, and thereby has to provide an undertaking when it comes to virtual hearings. It appears that since it is not being possible by the lawyer to verify the case documents through virtual means or with the health risk being taken, physically verifying them, lawyers are bound to blindly rely on such documents when representing the client before the court. In light of this matter, I would like to ask Barrister Mahbub Shafiq, how important is it for a practicing lawyer to submit true documents before the court, considering his duty towards the court, and how necessary is it to ensure that?
Thank you, Mr. Maruf. I think one simple answer to that question would be it's utmost that we use the genuine document. No question asked. We cannot deviate ourselves from that at all. As a lawyer, as a legal practitioner, it is our utmost duty, sacred duty, to produce genuine and true documents. Before answering this question properly in detail, it's better if we know the difference that the practice that used to have when the court was in session normal time and in the virtual court. In normal time, for filing a petition, a lawyer usually prepares the petition and hands it over to the client for going through it. He or she goes through the document and says it is correct. All the information is correct. And then we file it in the High Court section to get a permission for swearing affidavit. And affidavits are being sworn by the petitioner, if it's a writ petition, by the Todbirkar on behalf of the petitioner, if it's a criminal petition, right? And in the affidavit, they clearly utter this word. There has to be that these are statements made by the petitioner. It is their statement. If there is a document that is not genuine, it is their duty, not the duty of the lawyer, literally. So that is the practice in the normal time or actual court when the court actually is happening. But this virtual court, because of the pandemic that started worldwide on 26th of March, national holiday has been declared. It went on till 30th of May. During this particular period, that's an interim period, court were completely been shut down. Actual court cannot take place literally. So government came out with a understanding that we'll go virtual, not being present before the court, but the court will have to take its initiative. The court practices, the court must go on. So it's an interim period. That is the first and foremost understanding. It is not for normal period. It's an interim period. These virtual courts are in session. The problem now, petitioner cannot go to the court for verification of the documents or swearing the affidavit. So what will happen? This document needs to be produced before the court for coming to a right conclusion or a judgment or an order. So the process that has been initiated in the virtual court is that we have to, as a lawyer, have to take the responsibility for giving the genuineness of these documents. It's an extra burden on top of the burden we usually take as a lawyer. Not a burden, it's a responsibility. So it's a extra line that we have to add to our petition stating that these documents are genuine and they're found to be genuine by us, not the petitioners. So this is an extra responsibility that has been attached with our already the responsibility that we are trying to take. So now the answer that comes, this is a difference between an actual court and the virtual court. Actual court, it is the duty of the petitioners. It is the affidavit of the petitioners. Not even though lawyer is moving it, but it is the affidavit of the petitioners. So genuineness of the document is a burden is upon the petitioner. But when the virtual court's in session, it is the burden upon the lawyers now. So an extra burden we are taking. So when we are as a lawyer, an extra burden we are taking, we have to be extra cautious. We have to be extra cautious. I'm repeating it, to check the documents over and over again. And there's another problem. In normal times, we get certified copies. In virtual time, virtual courts, sometimes we haven't got the actual certified copies of the orders that we have annexed. Maybe we got it in a piece of paper that we have annexed. That is another burden that we have to take. So we have to be, as a lawyer, extra cautious to put any document before the court in a virtual court. And I think we cannot escape that liability. It is the duty and utmost duty of the lawyers to scrutinize every piece of paper that we are getting on behalf of the petitioners and place it before the court.
Thank you.
That was the question.
I would now like to ask Barrister Mojibul Haq, being a legal practitioner in the UK, can you please explain the procedure as to how solicitors can verify documents when necessary, including supporting documentary evidence regarding the reliability and truthfulness after those are received from clients?
Okay, thank you, my learned friends, Barrister Marif and Barrister Shafiq Bhai. I think, first of all, we need to understand what virtual courts are. I mean, I think Shafiq Bhai has touched on there's two, in my opinion, or at the moment in the UK, a remote hearing is conducted either by telephone or by video conference. There's two types. The telephone hearings are principally used for simpler procedural hearings, while video conference is used for more substantial and complex hearings, including some case management hearings and application motions, as well as trials and appeals. So we need to understand there's two types. While using the telephone conference has been common for certain types of hearings for some time, this is even before COVID-19, particularly those involving witness evidence and newer development. This means that judges and courts users are navigating some new challenges in the new COVID-19 experience. However, experience of hearings so far are broadly being positive because it's produced positive outcomes. Now, there are certain things you need to understand. How to join a remote hearing. There's preparation for a remote hearing. I think in preparation, what for remote hearing is very significant. For video hearings in particular, significant planning is required. So testing collaboration parties is necessary. As part of this, you will generally arrange a test call with the courts and all other participants the day preceding the hearings. It's helpful if participants, particularly witnesses, do this test call prior, setting they will be in the hearing itself. It's very important because you need to get things set up properly. If it's a video conference, you can basically see each other, see a person's expression in terms of documents, because the whole point of having, hearings in court is people's body language. You can see what's happening. You can see exactly how they respond to a questioning. When you cross-examine a witness, what happens? But whereas in virtual courts, if it's a telephone hearing, you can't see the expression. When you ask them a question, whether they're reading off a script, what are they doing, or what they're doing. I know by law, they're not supposed to do anything that misleads the court. I mean, I think, Maruf initially, Maruf originally said that verification of documents is very important. And obviously, how do we do that? And how as solicitors we do that? We cannot be seen to mislead the court in any way, and we cannot produce any documents that we think or it is in line with the pre-action protocol of a certain document, in line with what is required. Now, first of all, for immigration purposes, we have documents, we have clients who bring in documents for us. But before we submit it, we have to make sure we are satisfied with those documents. If there's anything that you see misleading, I mean, there's a lot of documents that come from Bangladesh. The names are misspelt, the dates of births are wrong. So, and the sworn affidavit is sometimes wrong as well. So, especially in documents that are coming for immigration purposes, people who are claiming asylum, people who are claiming that they're married, marriage certificates from Bangladesh. We've had instances where they've had documents that have it's the same person, but the names are spelled wrong, dates of births are wrong. So there's all sorts of problems with verification of documents. But as a lawyer, you respect your client and you respect the fact that whatever documents he produces, you make sure that you say to him that whatever documents you produce, I'm taking these in good faith. And if they are misleading, then obviously you're the person that's misleading. I'm not. I'm producing the documents that you're giving me. When you're preparing for a hearing, there's other consideration that you need to be taken into account as well. It'll be necessary to agree various aspects of how the hearing will proceed. That's a very important thing. With the other parties and the court, sometimes set this out in a protocol before the hearing. This might cover issues such as who is to be visible and who's to be audible. So you can have two people there. You can have somebody who's visible, the judge can see him, or somebody who's audible, especially with if there is children involved, or if there's somebody that's vulnerable. So that's very important. This might cover issues as who's visible and who's not. Only the judge or the advocates or the witnesses, while giving evidence, can see them. And how advocates get interactions with another person speaking is by muting muting it on the system. Now, there's a lot of considerations that you need to give. I mean, I can go on, but there's a lot of points that I've raised. There's some practical considerations I think you need to understand. The practical ensure that you have adequate, basically when you set up a hearing, your computer system has to have a strong hearing, because I've found in the past where, we're talking through the virtual hearing, all of a sudden we leave contact, and then you have to go through the system of trying to set up the security and go through it again. You have to make sure that the relevant documents are in hand, that all the documents, or you should have two screens, one with the documents and one where you can see the person itself, so you can refer to the documents. It's all right. And when you're referring to the documents, you can see whether that, once you've submitted the documents to the court, they will have a copy of the documents and you can see them yourself as well. In a video hearing, you should be in a visible place with no noise, background noise. So therefore, it's very important that the judge can hear you clearly. I'll give you some examples that obviously, in terms of my experience in a minute. I think what considerations you need to give for witnesses as well is witnesses must particularly observe the points of dress code if they're in a video conference, the silence of devices. So you need to make sure that your client understands these. And also, they should have, if they're swearing on an affidavit, if they're swearing on oath, or if they're swearing on a scripture or a Quran, they should have that available next to them, so that on the telephone they can swear that the statements that they're giving is true, and also the fact that the evidence that they're giving, they can swear on the scripture. It's when they're giving evidence, it's critical communication with other person. So therefore, there's nobody in that room, and they're basically not listening to somebody telling them, giving them the information. They must basically be by themselves in a particular. So there's a lot of problems that you can face with virtual hearings, basically, if it's telephone hearings. Also, you're also not allowed to use any notes. So when he's giving evidence, you don't know if he's made any notes. He can go off his statements. But obviously with virtual hearings, you don't know if somebody's feeding him the information, what's happening. You're just listening to him on the phone. So when the judge is asking the question or the judge is saying something, where is he reading off? So there's a lot of, practical problems that can be faced. There's, in one sense, it's good because it reduces, the court's time, attending court, travel time, all those things. But obviously, there's there's other things to consider. The rules for affirmation to conclusion of evidence, including during any breaks of the hearing. If they go for a break, where are they going? Are they going to speak to somebody so that they're feeding him the information? So obviously, those things need to be considered. Now, the question of how do we verify documents? First of all, the procedure in the UK that we've been following is that before the hearing, you have to submit all the documents. Once you have got the witness statement, once you've sworn the witness statements, he signs in front of in our office, and then once we produce the bundle of documents, we upload it onto the court system. We serve a copy to the other side. And then once the courts have received it, they will then set a hearing date for a hearing. On the day of the hearing, the courts will ring you, and then there's an automatic message from the court system saying, we're going into the courtroom now. Are you ready to go in? Are you available? They will give you, you tell them your name, and then one by one, the judge speaks to everybody and brings everybody in, just like what we've done today. And then the judge will introduce himself and go through what the problem is, or what they're dealing with today. In family matters, immigration matters. I mean, the last one that I dealt with is a civil matter on a bankruptcy matter, and the judge went through all the documents, made sure that everybody had the correct documents. I had their documents, the other side's documents, and they had ours, and the judge had sight of both bundle of documents. So once that procedure had gone through, then the judge would start. We would start by whoever the application is. They would start by their submission, and then we would basically give our submission. And then the judge from that would either ask the questions. The witness can, in some certain cases, depending on if he wishes to do so, join in the telephone hearing. But obviously, because he's already given a sworn statement, the solicitors or the legal representative can represent him without him being present. Now, verification of documents is very, very important. In terms of the UK, when we look at documents, we rarely find that a document has been tampered with, or there is an issue with the documents, unless somebody, because you can easily check, you can ring the company up, you can ring to make sure that whether this company is a legitimate company. In my experience, I've not had anything that I had problems with, apart from on a number of occasions where they've misspelled a name, or they put the national insurance number or date of birth that's been wrong on the application. But in my experience, looking at documents in the UK when we submit them to court, I've not had any cause for concern for the documents produced in the UK, but the documents that we've received from Bangladesh that I've said to you, when we've submitted or when we've gone to court on a number of occasions, when I've gone to tribunals for immigration purposes, the other side have disputed the fact that this is a genuine document, and they have, produced that in court and said to the judge, Your Honor, we don't accept this as a genuine document. This is a fake document that can be produced in Bangladesh, because obviously there is a lot of information on the internet regarding false documents that can be produced at a cost in Bangladesh. Anything can be produced in Bangladesh, a fake death certificate, a fake marriage certificate. So therefore, any documents that come from Bangladesh for immigration or any purposes is always scrutinized. So, it's up to the individual lawyer, individual solicitor to have a look at the documents. If he has any concerns that he thinks, then obviously he himself needs to make sure that, that it's the genuine document. And the way he can do that is basically, if there's a telephone number on, or if there's any contact details, he can ring them if he feels that he needs to. But obviously he needs to make it clear to his client that whatever documents he produces to the fact that it's the original, and that you're not producing false. If he does, then he may, the court will not look at him in a favorable way. In this country, if you produce a document that is false, it goes against you when the judge is considering your case. Because if you've done something in fraud, I'll give you an example of that's very serious. A person produced that I know of, a person produced documents from Bangladesh, and he obtained a British passport. And I think 10 years later, when he applied to bring his wife back to the UK, he produced this passport. And apparently, when they issued this British passport, he'd deceived them with false documents from Bangladesh. So therefore, they cancelled his passport, his British passport, original British passport, and they put him to, he had no status. So it's very, very important. And sometimes we take our client's word for it, what they are saying. And if they produce false documents, then obviously we need to scrutinize it. And we have to make sure 100% that whatever documents we produce to the courts, in our eyes, are genuine, because we cannot be seen to be misleading the court in any way whatsoever, because we are duty bound by the courts. So whatever we do, that it's truthful to the courts, and we're not misleading them anyway. So therefore, I think that's very, very important to verify them, whoever is the solicitor or the legal representative.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Barrister Mojibul Haq, for your detailed explanation on this point. Another major problem regarding virtual courts has been a lack of training about the specific use of technology in terms of legal proceedings, based on which the e-justice system was boycotted by lawyers in 11 districts in Bangladesh. Even though it has been a long overdue necessity in terms of the modern world in which we live in, the fact that this lengthy period of worldwide crisis has been caused by the pandemic can, from one point of view, be considered to be the best opportunity in which the use of technology is most required, whereas unhelpful from another point of view. In this context, may I ask Barrister Mahbub Shafiq a question relating to this? How do you think such virtual legal training during this pandemic is possible to lawyers who have never been technologically dependent, including in terms of legal practice?
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Before answering your question straight away, I think I should clarify the practice that is going on in virtual court. As opposed to my friend Mr. Haq clearly said, it seems in UK, full-blown court is going on through virtual court. It's completely different Bangladesh. It's not a full-blown court. The reason being, taking of evidence, taking of normal civil cases, that has not yet started. What we are trying to solve to virtual court is only question of bails, bail only, or some issue of writ jurisdiction, say for government decisions, those who are affecting the rights of the individual or citizens, or taking away the or infringing the fundamental rights of the people. Only those issues are being taken care through virtual courts. So normal court, like a civil case, a proper criminal case, taking evidence and giving the punishment, imposing the punishment, is not happening. Only very limited. The reason being, I think this thing has been clarified by our law minister. He clearly said or stated that this is an extraordinary situation. Extraordinary measure has been taken. It's not a normal situation and normal measure. So virtual courts are only for this pandemic period. As long as we get back to a normal situation, definitely the court will get back to its actual position. So absolutely, we need to correct ourselves that virtual is not a normal situation; it's a extraordinary situation. So so far, it is. If you compare it with UK, it's completely a different scenario.
No,
Only
can I just clarify? I agree with you. The fact is, civil proceedings in the UK are being through the virtual hearing. Jury hearings are not happening because jury need to be members of the jury. Criminal cases are not happening. Only
Right.
certain types of cases, because virtual courts are something that are new. And during this pandemic, because rather than have a backlog of cases waiting, the virtual courts allowed the court to continue their work, producing the, obviously, if it's a civil matter, you know, swearing in witnesses, you've got witness statements, and so therefore they don't need to be, like I said to you initially, sometimes the lawyers don't need the witnesses on, don't need their clients. So it's just the judge, the other side, the opposition solicitor, or this side's legal representative in the telephone hearing. So therefore the witnesses aren't required. So in criminal matters, it's very important to have the hearing in court itself, because you have a jury who needs to be sworn in, and so therefore jury trials weren't happening. So at the present moment, during this period, clarification is that civil matters that could be heard without a jury and that was simplistic, like I said to you, simpler matters, those were basically being heard. I mean, I agree with you 100%. This is just this is short term. Because rather than within the 3 month or 4 month period of the pandemic, rather than sit on the courts and everybody, you know, everybody's been sent home to work from home. Most lawyers, most barristers, most solicitors, we have all been working from home. So because we're working from home, we need to continue with the legal system, basically. So therefore, everything is, whatever is possible to be done through the phone is done. The courts will set the hearing date in line with whatever they feel is they are able to deal with. So the judge will, if he's able to deal with a matter, then they will set a date for hearing. If they don't, if it's something that requires, you know, face-to-face evidence, then they will postpone the hearing for a future date. I have a number of cases that have been postponed, and we don't know whether the hearings will be August, September, October, whenever. I have some, you know, appeal hearings that, because we need cross-examination of witnesses, we have to have a, you know, hearing in the court. So those types of hearings have been postponed for a later date. But the hearings, like I said to you, the simpler ones that can be dealt with, you know, an application for, I don't know, N224 application notice, you know, an application, I don't know, a simple application that can be dealt with by a judge, application to set aside a judgment, you know, those types of things, simpler things can be, but jury trials, complex cases, they cannot be, and they have to be put back until the proper hearing date. So I just want to clarify that. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much for the clarification. I think the same here. It's the same here in Bangladesh. Very simple matters, bail issues, those who are suffering behind the bar or behind the prison for a long time without the trial being held. Those are the issues taken care of in this pandemic period through virtual courts. Issues, those issues that are infringing the life of the particular person's fundamental rights and others, that needs to be taken care of. It's one of the very fundamental to our high court jurisdiction. So those are the issues that have been taken care of. Apart from those things, I think today is the date where kind of breakthrough has happened in Bangladesh. The reason being, question of producing the criminals before the court. We have obligation. The legal system has got obligation. If someone is being detained, he must be produced before the court within 24 hours. That was not happening previously. If happening for a very brief. So today they have started in the lower courts. So if there is a criminal case against someone, before today they couldn't come before the court asking for a bail because it was not there. We couldn't ask for it. Today is the date. I think it started where there's a case pending and someone needs a bail. He can come before the lower court, ask for the bail to be granted, and court is considering it. And it's happening in person as well. What I mean is the accused can come before the court and ask for the bail. That's happening. So this is one issue that needs to be discussed. I think question was a different one, lack of training. I haven't gone to the question of lack of training. Definitely there's a question of lack of training from both sides, from judiciary, that means the judges, those who are sitting there, and those who are in front of the judges, the lawyers. There's a question of lack of training for both sides, I think. Particularly the judges, those who are not young enough, they are facing problems because they are not much trained about the know-how of the technology. So they are facing problems. And the same goes with the senior lawyers. Those are the other side. Some of them are having problems because they don't know how to deal with it. And training is required. It's not only the judges, those who are conducting the case are bench officers and others, those who are bringing the files, printing them, giving it before the judges. They are having lack of training as well. So lack of training is a big issue, particularly the question of when the court is virtual, nobody was or is in person. So the question of technology comes in. This problem of not being in person is being taken care of through technology. So lack of training is there, and it hasn't been taken care of in last I think years or so. So it should have been taken care of. It should have been taken care of. So training should be not only for the judges, it should be for the lawyers as well. The practice we are having is we are sending the petitions through email now, and judges are printing it out. Mainly the bench officers, they're printing it out for the judges. They're being placed before the judges. They're going through the papers as well as the hard copy and the soft copy. If a paper to be produced instantly, we cannot do it. So judge is postponing the hearing for that day. It needs to come again in another day. So if it could have been done properly, technologically wise, if there would have a system that we could have sent the document straight away while the hearing has been conducted, that would have been easier. So these are the issues. These are the lack of training that we are facing now. Another problem that we are facing at the moment truly is, say a hearing is going on, and it's a question I think Mr. Hawk has identified this perfectly, I must say. The attire, the place where I'm getting the matter heard, we are faced with problem. Say a lawyer is in a street, he's trying to get the matter heard where the traffic is blazing around him, and court couldn't hear them properly. So for example, it's a kind of other lawyers are, there's a public hearing kind of thing. Other lawyers are talking behind the scene, and we couldn't hear the proper hearing of the judges and the lawyer that is going on. So these are the issues. There are directions from the court that it has to be a one-to-one. When the judge is hearing a particular matter, that particular lawyer will keep the microphone open, others cannot keep it open. So there are directions of this. Attire issue of producing documents, issue of where the matter is being heard. It cannot be heard in a public place. It has to be a confined place where the audibility of it needs to be clarified properly from both sides. Judges can hear it properly. The lawyers can hear the judges properly. So lack of training is there. Training should have been taken place for a long time back. That hasn't taken place yet. We are trying, we are learning every day. I think it's an ongoing process. Lack of training is a big issue.
Right. Thank you, Shubha. May I, Maruf, may I say something on this matter? I think Shafiq Bhai has said a number of issues that have raised in Bangladesh in terms of training. In the UK, I think people are more, I don't know whether the computer literate. They basically know how to go through the system. I mean, the process what the court follows in the UK. I mean, we didn't have any training in terms of virtual hearing. We basically went straight into it. We were contacted by the courts and said, you're going to have such and such a hearing. Please produce, we have to, be 4 days or 5 days prior to the court, we have to produce to them a number that they could ring, and I have to be available. It's like going into court. So I have to make myself aware at 10 o'clock, so-and-so date, you're attending a hearing. So whether you attend it at court or whether you're attending as yourself, you basically have to be in a room, confine yourself without any noises. So whether you're attending a court, going there yourself, but you're attending a court in a room in a virtual hearing, you should be in that format. You should be in 15-20 minutes prior to the hearing. You should have all your documents before you should be able to go through it. You should be able to do a test to make sure that the sound, the quality, everything is fine. I mean, in terms of the younger generation are more computer literate. The older generation may not be, but the younger generations are computer literate. But in terms of documents, what you've just said is you have to submit them documents by hand or by email. We submit the documents to the courts by the court system. So everything is filed to the court, and as soon as you file it, the court will automatically send you a message that we have received your document, and we will forward it on to the judge. So, and then you submit a copy to the other side by email. You serve it on them, so everybody has a copy. So there's no need to print it off. Like I said to you, if you have two laptops or two screens, you can have one of the screens with all the documents and one that you are doing your submission on. So all the documents that you can see, the judge can see, and the other side can see at the same time. So therefore, there's no reason for you to print anything off, because obviously people are going away from printing documents now to virtual, getting documents by email. Everything is done by email. Most of the things that we do now, we send bundles, but now the courts are encouraging use less paper, just do everything by email, and you can send your documents to the courts. The courts can then submit it, a copy to the other side, or you can serve it by email, and there's no need to copy anything off anymore, unless there's a specific document that you need. Even if you're relying on certain case law, you could just send that through and refer to it in your bundle. Say, go to page so and so, this is the bundle, this is my case law that I'm referring to, and the judge can see what you're referring to. So therefore, there's no need for hard copies anymore. They're trying to do away with that. I mean, I think the system in Bangladesh, it needs upgrading in terms of the should have a system whereby all lawyers should be able to upload the documents, file it with the courts, and the courts can then allocate it to the case for the judge to see. Judges look at documents, they don't look at it. Are we? Oh, sorry. What is the problem, Maruf? Can you hear me? Hello? Maruf?
Is it?
Can you hear me, Shafi bhai?
I can.
Okay, Maruf doesn't seem to be hearing us. Maruf?
I think Mr. Chaudhary is having a problem.
I think there's been a technical issue, technical problem. I think it's fine now.
Okay.
There's been a technical error.
Okay.
Thank you, Barrister Mahbub Shafiq and Barrister Mojibul Haq, for explaining this point. The next question I would like to ask Barrister Mojibul Haq is, can you please explain what methods are followed in the UK in terms of such training and legal representation for virtual proceedings?
Well, for legal representation for virtual hearings, we basically have to take representation from our client. Once we get represented, we have to submit to the courts that we are acting for this individual. We submit the the notice of acting to the solicitors, to the other side, that we've been instructed by this client. We instruct the courts as well. The courts then file any documents, send any documents they have for the hearing to ourselves, and then we correspond with the courts in that way.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know what the system is in Bangladesh, Shafiq Bhai. Is it similar? Basically, you take instruction, then a notice of acting?
Usually what happens is we have
Now,
a session with the client. We have the session, and then we take the documents. We prepare the petition first, and then in the normal time, we affidavit it, swearing an affidavit, and then we submit it in the court. It goes to the court process. But now the virtual court system is completely different. We take the documents, we prepare the petition, we make a particular forwarding stating that what is the emergency, and on the basis of the emergency, we file it through the email. And the email is being looked after by the bench officers and the concerned judge. He will then decide on the basis of the urgency which matter should be taken and which matter should be left out for the time being. And on the basis of that, he draws a list of the cases that's going to be heard on next morning or next day. And then he sends a link of either Microsoft Team or some other means or platforms through which when the court starts at 10:30, we just click on the link and then we can get into the hearing. And according to the lists are being called by the bench officer or the judges themselves who is present and hearing the matter. And then one by one, the whole list is being called for and heard. Depending on the urgency, depending on the issues and matter, it is the discretion of the judge to decide whether matter should be heard on that very day. If he feels that is a matter which can be there for another hearing, he gives a date, another date, or he completely takes it out of the list for actual hearing when the matter comes actually in the actual court, not in virtual court. So if it's completely discretion of the judge to decide whether matter should be heard in the virtual court or not to be heard in the virtual court. So that's the process. One thing is, even it's virtual, even if we file the case through the email, we do have to contact the bench officer to make sure that it comes in the list properly. That is another issue that is being debated, that it's really, it's a problem for us because we have to contact them for getting the matter heard sometimes. It's a problem.
Well, well, Shafiq Bhai, I agree with you. Once we submit our application to the courts through the court system, we then verify with the courts that whether it would be listed. But I think what they do in the UK is basically they'll take it in front of a judge, and the judge will then decide whether he wants to list it for a hearing. And once it gets listed, I think complicated cases, complex cases, I think the judge, it's at the discretion of the judge how he lists them. And then the listing officer will then write to you and say, yes, we've been listed the hearing for such and such a date. And then they will say to you, we need, because it's listed so-and-so date, you need to produce telephone numbers for all the people that will be attending the virtual hearing. The actual hearings obviously is different in the fact that you turn up a court and everybody's suited and booted to make sure that you look the part. Whereas, with virtual, you don't know what the person's looking like, whether he's still in his bedclothes wearing a lungi and basically attending the hearing. So, yeah, it's very important. I find that it doesn't matter whether it's a virtual hearing or actual hearing. If I wear a suit, even if I'm a telephone hearing, I'll put a suit and tie on and shirt on, because I feel as though that at that time my mind and brain goes into a different mode, whereas I'm in a hearing mode, and I can actually talk to the judge and bring do a proper submission. Whereas if I'm just wearing a t-shirt and he can't see me whether I'm in a t-shirt or not, it just doesn't seem to me, I feel more comfortable in basically what I'm wearing, whether it's a virtual hearing or whether it's actual hearing, that it's very important. It makes you feel better. And in terms of training, I think there is Bangladesh should. I mean, Bangladesh is computer literate now, and a lot of people know how to use the computer system. But all it is I think there is investment needed within the court system so that it's upgraded, so it makes it easier for courts to just have trials, have documents pre-checked to make sure they are legitimate documents. There isn't, the documents that they've been submitted. They should have a system whereby any documents that are produced to the courts, they should have a department that checks those, basically to make sure, or the solicitors, the lawyers that are filing them should have a system whereby they're able to check them, because going to court with false documents is not in anybody's interest. So our main question that we were looking at is how do we verify documents? Coming back to it is how do we verify documents? It's very, very important. Like I said, there has to be a system in Bangladesh that needs to be able to verify and the true content of the document. I mean, people in Bangladesh swear affidavits all day long, but whether the contents of that affidavit is right or whether it's falsified, to them it doesn't make any difference as long as they can win their case. That's the main thing, isn't it? I mean, but how do you verify documents? It's always going to be a problem, I think, in Bangladesh, of a country of that magnitude, that people being able to verify documents, even genuine documents, you brought into question because people think, oh, is this doctored? Has this document been tampered with? It's not the correct format, or the information is totally wrong. So even correct original documents that are like birth certificates, original other documents, deeds, they're all bringing into question, because there's always this that you can produce false documents in Bangladesh, and the law can be swayed with illegal documents, because the law, the courts cannot verify them. It's to the individual who's producing them, and also the lawyer that's basically handling the case, for him to make sure that he's happy with. So I think there's always going to be a problem of verification of documents in Bangladesh unless there is a different system put in place.
I think I just like to add something on top of what Mr. Hawk said. If we can have a real investment in IT, whatever the document that is produced by the government or the court, if it goes straight to the cloud and anybody with authority can literally check that cloud information in that cloud, that is whereby we get the genuine documents. Whatever's been document been produced, say order has been passed in the lower court, if it is being updated or uploaded in the cloud, and if I have the authority to, I can check that. As a lawyer, I'll have a password or something which will allow me to enter into the cloud to check that. A simple thing, simple upgradation can make sure that original documents are being used. Whenever a document is produced, that can always be cross-checked, because in the document there will be a reference, and in the cloud,
exactly.
The reference, if it matches, it's genuine. If it doesn't, then question will be there. So if we invest in IT, I think the government and the judiciary is investing. I believe in that. If they invest and properly that invest is being used, I think it's a very easy way to solve this issue of genuineness of the documents.
So I think it's investment. Is like I said initially, that the government needs to invest more money into the legal system. The legal system, the computer system, how documents are uploaded. So I totally agree with you. We have my knowledge of verification of documents in the UK is we've never had very little problems that we've had of verifying documents here, but apart from the documents that come from outside the UK, then we have to look at it very closely. The judge looks at it very closely to say where this document has come from. Is there any record of that country producing documents that are false, can be falsified? So yeah, it's very important that the government upgrade the computer system and upgrade their system. Legal system to be able to verify these documents. Okay, Marif?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the elaborate explanation on this point. The next matter, which we can.
I think we have covered all the points, the documents, and the handling procedure, everything.
Yes. is the next. Another matter was the court document handling procedure. That as the use of technology in terms of legal practice has very recently been introduced, there are still various court document handling procedures. It also includes that when initiating a case, uh, which lawyers have to physically carry out. So, Barrister Mujibul Haq, if you can um, address the issue that how much technologically and physically dependent are legal practitioners when it comes to handling court procedures in the UK during this pandemic?
Well, you are in the hands of the courts totally, in the IT system technology, because of the fact that you are uploading all your documents. I've on one occasion myself, my experience is I uploaded some documents to the courts, and when at the date of hearing, the judge said that, Mr. Hawk, I've not got your documents before me, but sir, Your Honor, I've produced the documents to the courts, but you may have, but I haven't got it. Now, there is always going to be that issue that you send it to the court, and the courts haven't sent it to the judge, or there's no link for the judge to see it. In the end, we had to. Well, I had to resubmit it back to the court, and I had already sent a court bundle. I sent a hard copy to the courts, and I also sent a copy to the courts itself, upload it onto their system. But the judge on the day couldn't see the documents that I had submitted. So when I was doing my submission, I was referring to the pages in the document and he couldn't see it. So obviously, and then the other side had received our documents and the other side clarified what we were saying. So in there, the judge received it. So in terms of technology plays a very, very important part in this virtual hearing, because if you were in court, you'd say, Your Honor, I've got a second copy that I can give to you, can have, But whereas it has to be with the computer system, the technology plays a huge part in this. And if for any reason any documents aren't received by the judge, then obviously, it brings your case a lot weaker, because the judge can't actually see what you're referring to, So yes, I say the computer system, the technology plays a big part. Also, during like today, you've also experienced some technical issues. The same happens when you're having a hearing. There is technical issues. You may have raised a point which was very important, and the judge couldn't hear it. The judge will say, I didn't get what you were saying. You have to repeat that. Whereas in the courts, basically, you don't have to repeat that, because obviously, if the judge doesn't understand something, sir, you can refer to my skeleton argument. This is what I've put in the skeleton argument. So I think it's very important because of technology. If for any reason, there's not a strong network, or there's not a strong signal where you are, all these things play a very important part in, because technology these days, even though we say we have a lot of technology, sometimes, technology, it goes wrong. It goes wrong. And when it does go wrong and you're in a hearing, in the middle of a hearing, it really does affect you, trying to make a final submission because the judge hasn't heard you, or the reference that you made to in a bundle, he's not being able to, get it clear. You have to repeat it, So yes, it plays extremely, it's an important part, technology, and that needs to be upgraded, and that needs to be tested prior to the hearing to make sure that everybody can hear each other. There's no, background noises. There's no, all those things, and aren't really thinking in the back. So yeah, it's very important.
Yes, thank you.
From there, just to add with Mr. Hawk, it's not only it's one of the vital thing, because the question of being present in the court has been actually switched through a technological part. So it's the main thing. So if anything goes wrong, in my case particularly, say I've sent the entire bundle and then few of the pages somehow went missing. It was printed out, or it didn't go through, or something went wrong. So I almost completed the hearing, and then one of the vital page I wanted to particularly mention, and he couldn't find it out. So it went missing. So I have to wait for another week to get the document sent properly and get the matter heard. So it's one of the main key thing. IT, investment in IT, if it is properly been done, the handling and everything will go smoothly. If it is not properly been done, I think it will create problem.
Yes,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
investment in IT is an absolute thing now, particularly in 20th century. We cannot just leave it like that. We have to, government and the judiciary must think together to invest in a huge amount in IT.
The further to add to Shafiq Bhai is the fact that what you just said, that one of your documents wasn't produced, or you had to stop the hearing and wait for another hearing. That's wasting time. I mean,
Exactly.
obviously, that's the negative side. Looking at the positives and also looking at the negative side. If, for instance, the document's not uploaded and you have to stop the hearing and wait for another day, it's basically your time again to come again onto this hearing. So we need to get this perfect, and the only investment in technology is going to make sure that these things be in a quicker process. The process itself is followed in a good way, and that everybody, when we do the virtual hearings, that the judge is satisfied and there's no mishaps. In future, I think, going back to the actual hearings, I think there will be virtual hearings, but obviously only simpler hearings that you don't need to be in court. So I think moving forward, virtual hearings are going to be thing of the future as well. Obviously, then it will free up court's time for more serious matters, for jury trials and things. I think virtual hearings will be a thing of the future, really, because when you think about it, you're not traveling, you're saving travel time, going to the courts, sitting outside the courts, being called into the courts, and then travel time back. So you're saving a lot of time, whereas you can do it from home. You can sit in a room and it's done within half an hour. You've done it. You don't have to leave your house. I think virtual hearings are going to be a thing of the future. But for Bangladesh, it's very important that they invest in technology, because it's going to be very, very important that Bangladesh is on the front line with these types of hearing in the future as well.
True. I totally agree on that.
Thank you for clarification on this. The next question which I have for Barrister Mahmood Shafiq is that do you think that it can be possible for lawyers in Bangladesh to entirely rely on technology for virtual hearings during this pandemic?
I think we have no other option. The answer to that, straight answer, we don't have any other option. They have to rely on it. I was just talking before starting this conversation. I was talking with one of my friend, and I was telling him, say, anticipatory bail, issue of anticipatory bail. That means the presence of that particular accused should be in the court. In a small court like Bangladesh, in a very small court, if anticipatory bails are being heard, usually we see hundreds and hundreds of accused gathered there. In this pandemic situation, it's I think if it is allowed, this court will be a new breeding ground for COVID-19, and we cannot allow it to happen. So we have to find a technology-based solution whereby, without being present in person, through the technology, we can have the same effect. We can have we can take the same measure, the same anticipatory bail, or same thing will have at the end of the day through technology. If that is being done, I think it will not only save time and money, it's a question of life as well at the end of the day. Because people are dying around. Your family members, my family members are dying. It started with very few, but it's going on now. It's increasing day by day. So we have to take precautions. We have to make sure that social distancing are being placed and properly. So technology and virtual court is the only option that we have to countermeasure this COVID-19. We have no other options.
I think the other option, I mean, obviously, we're looking at how the UK is moving forward in this pandemic, is that when they have actual hearings, we were supposed to attend an actual hearing quite recently, and what the courts phoned our office and phoned me or from the other side is basically they're only allowing one person, the accused and his lawyer. Nobody else can go inside the courtroom. The security will stop you. And when you go in, you have to use the sanitizer, you have to have a face mask. And also, there is only the judge, the solicitors on the other side, the solicitors on this side, and the accused. You know, that's the only people. 4 people are allowed in the courtroom and nobody else. And there's no gatherings outside the courts. I think the problems in Bangladesh that I have seen in the past when I've attended court or visited the courts is that the amount of people that are loitering outside, walking, doing nothing. You know, I think there has to be a system whereby the court doors or gates are closed, and purely and simply the accused, the lawyers, you know, acting for the CPS, for the government, and the lawyers acting for him, for your client, are only allowed. So they reduce the people. The gates should be closed, and they should only allow certain people. I mean, you know, when you go to Bangladesh, the courts are like a cattle market. Everybody's there, and whether they need to be there or whether they don't need to be there. And that's the reason it's an absolute breeding ground, like you say, for COVID-19, especially the way things are going. The amount of people that are passing away because of this COVID-19. I mean, we didn't realize that, you know, this COVID-19 and hands, you know, touching people, shaking hands with people, which we took as normal, as a way of life, is no longer a way of life. You know, I walked into a bank the other day and they said to me, before, when people used to walk into a bank wearing a mask, we used to be frightened, we'd call the police. Now, if they don't wear a mask, we call the police to say why, you know, we get frightened of why they're not wearing one. You know, so the world has totally changed to what we were before to now. You know, the masks are so important, you know, cleansing of hands. And, you know, the courts are absolute breeding ground for COVID-19 because people from all walks of life attend the court. And especially as lawyers that are trying to protect them, you need to, first of all, protect yourself. You need to be able to protect yourself then, because you're walking into somewhere where it's a public place. You've got your colleagues, you know, judges, everybody's using that room. And whatever you touch, whatever you think, this COVID-19, it stays on that surface for a certain period. And if you've moved there, you basically touch something, somebody else comes along, touches it, you know, you've passed it. So you don't know. So the distancing rules should be maintained at all times. I mean, you know, we're in a new phase of, you know, the world at the moment, the way things are going, and we need to adapt to it. And I don't think Bangladesh is adapting to it. And it's very important that if they don't adapt to it, we will see a lot more people that are dying, and, you know, and a lot more people which will have the COVID-19 will not know of it. You know, they've got it and they'll be passing on to the people. My own experience, my own nephew passed away with COVID-19. You know, just 2-3 weeks ago, my father-in-law passed away. You know, and these are in the villages. So there's a lot. You know, I feel at the moment people with underlying health conditions are very, very vulnerable. Heart condition, diabetes, as you've seen, and also with studies carried out in the UK. BME background, people from black and ethnic minorities, especially within the Bangladesh community, they have said in the UK, tests have proven that people in from Bangladesh origin are more prone to COVID-19, you know, for catching it. So therefore, we need to take this very, very seriously, and the whole country and the government needs to do something to eradicate this. Otherwise, you know, this pandemic is going to get worse and worse, and we will see a lot more deaths. You know, we've already seen, you know, MPs dying. We've also already seen so many people that are very important people that have passed away because of this, this COVID-19. So we need to adapt, and we need to do it quickly, because otherwise, you know, we don't know where it's going to take us. So I think it's very, very important that the government sees this, you know, and does something quickly. Virtual hearings is fantastic because you're not going to court, and I think I would say to you, Marif, that we should be an advocate for that and say, look, yes, we need to move forward. We need to do whatever is necessary for Bangladesh to have virtual courts so people aren't hanging around. You know, you can be in your own chambers where you are, Marif, today. You could sit there and have a hearing without leaving your own room or leaving your room. So I think that we need to advocate that to the courts and say, please put a system in whereby we don't need to be there, because the last thing we want is to take a COVID-19 from the courts to our house, to our parents, elderly parents, to our wives. Basically, we don't know. So we need to be very, very, very careful as to standing in a courtroom or going to the court, because a lot of people at the moment, even the courts are starting to reopen, are very reluctant to go back to court until they have a vaccine for COVID-19. So I think it's very important that you advocate this and basically promote the fact of virtual hearings and see what can be done in terms of having more involved virtual hearings, in Bangladesh.
Just
Very
to add,
helpful
Mr.
indeed.
Allow me for just a minute. We have to remember one thing. Those who are judges, mostly they are from above 40, minimum above 40 and 50 years old. And they are senior citizens
Yes.
sometimes. Even the senior lawyers we have, those who are our assets for the judiciary, they're all minimum 50 years above. So they are the most vulnerable ones. So we have no other
Yes.
option at this stage apart from this virtual court. That's the only option we have. And we have to
Yes.
carry on. Whether we like it or not, that is the reality. And that is the reality of the present. That is the reality of the current, maybe a future. We never know. I hope it
Yes.
doesn't. I hope we get the vaccine. I hope it goes away. I truly hope that. But that is the reality we have to accept. We have to think about our senior lawyers, we have to think our senior judges, and we have to act accordingly.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely true. Yes. Uh, a final matter to be addressed is if these or any other difficulties and challenges involving the virtual course can successfully be addressed in the midst of this ongoing pandemic, the use of technology can be considered to play a vital role. Barrister Mahmood Shafiq, what are your views on the widening and continuation of the use of virtual courts even after this pandemic as a method of overcoming the immense backlog of cases which currently exist in Bangladesh?
I think that's one of the problem with the judiciary in Bangladesh that we are facing is the backlog of cases. I think there are now 3 million cases pending, even High Court only alone maybe. So it's a big issue. 3 million cases is a big issue that we have to deal with. There are very simple cases that can be dealt with in a very simple manner. Maybe virtual court in future might be an option for us to deal with them. Few bail matters, once we get a bail, once we get a stay order, that needs to be extended. This extensions, only question of extensions, thousands and millions of extensions are coming every day. It's occupying maybe 50% of the court's time. These extensions or bail matters, extension of bail matters or writ petitions or a stay order or status quo order can easily be dealt with through virtual courts. Very simplistic, very simple ones, and should be taken care of through virtual court. A judge doesn't need to be in the court in person. A lawyer doesn't have to be in person. Someone sitting remotely somewhere at very convenient time, at very convenient place can be dealt with. I think this is an option for us in future to get out of this backlog of cases. I think so. This can be a very good tool in our hand to deal with the backlog of cases. Yes.
I think if I could just add a point to that, Shafiq Bhai, I think it's very, very important that what you stated, that there is a backlog, not just in Bangladesh, there's also a backlog of cases in the UK. I understand, listening to the legal voices and certainly reading from the newspapers, there is a lot of backlog of cases. I think virtual hearings will be a thing of the future. Like I said, in order to reduce this, eradicate this, it would save a lot of time. Like I said, time consuming. Going forward, it will be a thing of the future, I think. But what they will do is they will upgrade the technology in order for it to be more concrete, and so there is less problems in terms of how the hearing is heard. I think it's going to be something of the future, and it will easily when you think about court time and how much time it takes for somebody to attend court, and then the procedures in court, to be called one by one. In a virtual hearing, the judge is sat there, he's got the file of papers, he's got the list of cases he's going to hear, and you could be in one area, somebody else could be in a 5, 20, 30 miles away. He's not attending court, he could be in a virtual room, he could be at home, and the judge is sat in basically in chambers, and he's listening to everybody from all over the place, because obviously wherever you sat, wherever you position yourself at the date of the hearing, you don't have to all be there, and it's less time consuming because he can finish one within 20 minutes, half an hour at the maximum, then he can move to the next one, and he can deal with more cases. Whereas in court, you're basically sitting outside, so you're time consuming, you travel time to the court, you're sitting outside the court, you're going to the hearing, and then having the hearing, and then driving back. So obviously during that time, there's you've lost all day, but the judges may be listening to the same number of hearings, but I think it will save a lot of court time, and obviously individual time as well. I think virtual hearings are the thing of the future, Shafiq, but I agree with you, and it will help to eradicate, or it'll help to reduce the backlog of cases in Bangladesh. I mean, I don't know about in Bangladesh at the moment how this you've just touched on it, and virtually in terms of civil matters. The civil matters at the moment are just virtual hearings, aren't they? Very little criminal apart from bail hearings, virtual hearings. Is that correct?
Civil matters are not yet being heard properly. They started, a few motions are being heard. Mainly REIT, those are infringing the rights of the individuals, fundamental right, and bail matters. These are the two issues that are being dealt with. They're trying to expand the virtual arena. They're trying it. It might work. If it works, I think it's very good. It might work.
Yeah, I agree. Right, Maruf. Yeah, any more questions, Maruf?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to ask you another question. Can you please share your thoughts on the benefits of the use of technology in terms of legal practice and its necessity in Bangladesh? What are your thoughts about, just to elaborate again, that how can it be used in terms of Bangladesh? What is your advice on its use in Bangladesh, and how can this be forwarded, or how can this be widened?
Well, in terms of, I mean, obviously you asking me the question as to how it can be beneficial to Bangladesh. I mean, like I said to you, the legal system in Bangladesh needs to be upgraded with the technology, so it can, moving forward, deal with these virtual hearings in a quick and prompt manner. Lawyers that are attending the court are able to upload their documents to the court system, upload the documents to the other side, and so there needs to be a very technical system in whereby that all parties are able to scrutinize any documents that are sent to the courts or sent to themselves. I think it's very important moving forward, the considerations in terms of, first of all, when you are doing remote, practical considerations when you're doing remote hearings, you need to ensure that the computer equipment have a strong, sufficient, suitable internet connection. That's very important, and are able to access the relevant platforms for the hearing. For example, by checking it, it's not blocked by your firewalls. And sometimes, you go on the computer, it's blocked by your firewalls, and all of a sudden you're having problems. It can be useful to have more than one screen or device. So you basically, like I said, you're looking at two screens. The second screen or device can be used to display the electronic bundle of documents, which will be referred to during the course of the hearing. So it's very important that you have two screens on at the same time. You can discuss requirements and source additional equipment if needed. If you know prior to the hearing what difficulties you have, you should also have within an IT support system, basically for any difficulties within the court. So if the virtual court or the hearing at court is having an issue, then it can be the IT system can be dealt with safely. Obviously, it's very important, I think, for Bangladesh. It's for Bangladesh is to to get this IT system and technical system in place, and so it reduces the backlog. And I would advocate that, and I would basically say that this should be going forward. I think.
Just to add with what Mr. Hawk said, the technical know-hows. One good thing is, I think this government has invested a lot in IT in terms of internet. At least the speed of the internet that used to be there a few years back, virtually, not virtually, I should say. Actually, we have, in terms of speed, equivalent to other European or other countries. We never used to have this benefits before. I think this government has taken it very seriously, and particularly like they say that 2 megabyte per second is to be the minimum threshold. It has to be there. So this is what they have ensured. So as automatically, if internet is widely available and it is with good speed, that will eventually help the judiciary and other areas as well to develop in IT. So this is one benefit that we are getting at the end of the day because of this high speed of internet. If it wouldn't have been there in the first place, maybe this question of virtual court wouldn't have arrived at all in the first place. So one good investment area, I must say, that government has done.
Excellent.
Right.
Thank you for collaborating on this. We'll check whether we have any queries or questions from the audience.
I think it's been 1 hour 20 minutes. We've I thought it was half an hour, but it's gone for 1 hour 20 minutes so far.
True. Technical issue now?
Yes.
We have a question from Mohammed Murshid from one of our viewers. It's I don't know who can answer it. I'll just quickly go through it. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Murshid. I'm a nurse by profession. Due to a mistake in my MRP passport, I applied for an e-passport with newly revised information for correction. But without correcting my e-passport, I was given the e-passport by maintaining the previous misinformation of the MRP passport. But on the application of this passport, I spelled the revised name, or my name is misspelled, and my father's name is misspelled. Currently, after contacting various departments, I think this is regarding different context.
I think it just to answer it very simply, concerned authority should be contacted immediately. Rather, it has got nothing to do with, I think, legal issues or virtual court. I think he should immediately contact concerned authority to correct the spellings, that the mistake that took place in his passport, on his father's name or whatever. The concerned authority should be immediately contacted.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you very much, Barrister Mahmoud Shafiq and Barrister Mujibul Haq, for your helpful advice and thorough explanation on this issue, on all these issues. So I'd like to conclude today's webinar. And once again, thank you very much for joining
I'd like to thank Shafiq Bhai, first of all, for the informative discussion that we had today. I'd like to also thank Maruf Chaudhry, for inviting me and allowing me to be part of this voice and share my experiences. And we look forward to speaking again in the future. And I thank you very much. And thank you to the audience for listening. And obviously, everything that we've stated on here that is just our opinion, basically. So it doesn't need to be, it shouldn't be taken into a legal context. It's our opinion, and that's the main thing, that we have produced our opinion. And if there's anything that we have said, you should, and it relates to you, you should first of all get it verified by some solicitors or some lawyers yourself. You shouldn't take our word for what we've said or anything that is related to. And Shafiq Bhai, thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll meet in the future. And Maruf, thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We received
Thank you, Legal Voice Foundation. It's a nice platform to.
we received thank you from Legal Voice Foundation.
Right.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hawk, it's really nice to meet you. Maybe we haven't met in person, but it's nice to knowing you through our voice and pictures.
Inshallah.
It's nice meeting you. And Mr. Chaudhary, it's really nice to allow me to speak in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.